So last time we spoke about Mark 6, and the Lord's really had me in Mark, and I haven't got very far, because today we're up to Mark 9. So you can kind of gauge what my last few months have been like. Really got stuck in the 11. That was a great passage. But today we're looking at Mark 9. So I just want to read it to start with. Mark 9, starting at verse 14. If you want to get it ready, I'll just pray. Father, I just ask that you would just anoint my words today, Lord, that the things that you've been wanting to show us through this passage, Lord, God, I just ask that you would help me to speak your heart today, God. Lord, that we would grasp something, a new truth from your word, Lord, that we would hear what your Spirit's saying to us today, God. We ask that in your name, Jesus. Amen. All right, so Mark 9, I'm going to read from verse 14 through to 23. No, yeah, 29. Okay, a boy is healed. That's what it's called, all right? That's what it's called in mine. And when he came to the disciples, he saw a great multitude around them and scribes disputing with them. Immediately, when they saw him, all the people were greatly amazed and running to him, greeted him. And he asked the scribes, "What are you discussing with them?" Then one of the crowd answered and said, "Teacher, I brought you my son who had a mute spirit, and wherever it seizes him, it throws him down. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. So I spoke to your disciples that they should cast it out, but they could not." He answered him and said, "O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I bear with you? Bring him to me." Then they brought him to him. And when he saw him, immediately the spirit convulsed him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed, foaming at the mouth. So he asked his father, "How long has this been happening to him?" And he said, "From childhood. And often he has thrown him both into the fire and into the water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us." Jesus said to him, "If you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes." Immediately, the father of the child cried out and said with tears, "Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief." When Jesus saw the people came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, "Deaf and dumb spirit, I command you, come out of him and enter him no more." Then the spirit cried out, convulsed him greatly, and came out of him. And he became as one dead, so that many said, "He's dead." But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. And when he had come into the house, his disciples asked him privately, "Why could we not cast him out?" So he said to them, This kind can come out by nothing but prayer and fasting." So this passage I just want to look at today. And in our Western world, I don't think we have much grid for this. You know, in Tesco this week, we probably didn't see anybody hit the deck, convulsing. And yet, when we were in China, we probably did see, that's quite common. And I'm sure in Africa and a lot of the different nations that we've worked in different ones of us, these things aren't too foreign. And yet, in this country, I would say that we don't see the demonic in this way anyway. It doesn't look the same. And so I think that this passage can often be overlooked, because it's like we get to it and it's like, don't know about that. Haven't seen that lately. And you just kind of read it through and maybe pick out something about unbelief and keep going. Do you know what I mean? And yet I just feel like God has just tried to stop me in this passage because he's wanted to speak through it. And I remember Lamech preached on it maybe a year ago, something like that. And I got some sort of a revelation from him and I lost it. And I tried to think about it, and I read the verse, and I'm like, what did Lamech say again? What did he say again? And I couldn't find it. Anyway, a few weeks ago, I said to him, Lamech, I have got to talk to you about Mark 9 because I need the revelation back that I lost. And so I told him that in the morning. And then that week, I listened to, on Monday, I usually start my podcasts. Just like take day out, and I just try and get in the Word. And one of the ones I love to listen to is Stephen Furtick. Well, he was on Mark 9 straight away. So I said to Lamech, you won't believe it. Everyone's talking about Mark 9. And then we got our chat somewhere. And then I'd written out my message and my thoughts. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to put on another message. Bill Johnson, he was talking about Mark 9. So seriously, everybody's talking about Mark 9. You probably all read it this week. Who read Mark 9 this week? Oh, well. So let's look at the boy first, because the title is The Boy That Was Healed. All right? So in verse 17, then one of the crowd answered and said, Teacher, I brought you my son who has a mute spirit. And whenever it seizes him, it throws him down, foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, becomes rigid. So I spoke to disciples. They couldn't do it. So we've got this boy. He's got a mute spirit. It seizes him and throws him down. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. Right? We can picture it, can't we? Doesn't seem pretty. Seems like the sort of thing that everyone would stop and, what's going on there? You know? It goes on to say that there's been times when it's thrown him into the fire and water to destroy him. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? And it departs from him with great difficulty, bruising him. And in Luke 9, it gives us another little bit of detail. It says that he suddenly cries out. All right, so we've got this boy, the mute spirit. The spirit seizes him regularly, throws him down, foaming at the mouth, gnashing his teeth, becomes rigid. The boy screams out. The mute spirit doesn't talk all the time until it throws him down, and then the scream. Isn't that crazy? A boy that never talks, all of a sudden, as soon as he's thrown down, he starts screaming. And as a result of the whole thing, he comes out of it all bruised. So I looked up a few words here, and I cannot speak, I can't say these right at all. But seizes is, I think I always say these things with a Chinese accent, because that's the only foreign language I can read. But it's, Catalambano. Catalambano. You know it, Raul, don't you? But seizes means to lay hold of and overcome. All right? So we're talking about a mute spirit that laid hold of this boy and would overcome. All right? Bruising, that would bruise him, leave him bruised, is another word, sun tribo, to crush, to trample upon, break in pieces, shatter, grind down. It's not a nice experience, is it? The boy had a mute spirit, something that would keep him quiet and then made him cry out, that would beat him up and bruise him. It was a cycle that he was trapped in. And I feel like the Lord's asking us today, what cycle are we trapped in? What is it that we can't talk about? What is it that we're hiding? What is it that causes us to scream out, to cry out, whether it's in pain, whether it's because we can't stand it anymore, that leaves us bruised, causes us to retreat into that place of silence again? Is it the cycle where we need the praise of man? I can't feel good about myself until somebody tells me. I look for it. Is that what it is for you? What's the cycle? You know, some of these things can be just little, and yet they're a cycle that just keeps us It keeps us silent because we're stewing on the inside. I don't feel good about myself. I don't feel good about myself. It caused me to scream out, what do you think of me? It could be just simple things like that. Is it praise of man that just keeps you going in your life that you need? Is it control? I need to control me and I need to control you. And if I'm not in control, things aren't fine and I start to scream. Have you ever lived with someone like that? Control. Is it drama? Everyone likes a good drama, don't they? What's going on in your life? Let me hear about this. Are you addicted to drama? Is that the cycle that's going in your life? Is it alcohol? Is it porn? Is it drugs? We all have things that we face in our lives. We all have things that we have to confront. Is it a sin cycle? Illness, mental health issues, fear, anxiety, negative thinking. What is it that you can't talk about? What is it that you're hiding? What is it that gets to the point where you can't stand it anymore and it causes you to scream out, that causes so much pain and leaves you bruised on the inside and causes you to retreat to that place of silence again? You see, I think we can actually relate to this passage a whole heap more than it maybe looked like on the surface. I think that we can all relate to these cycles, whatever they are. We've all got things that we face in our life. We all have things that we want victory over. In my Bible, the heading's a boy that's healed. But it could be titled so many other things. Let's think of the dad. This dad, he'd been living with this for so long. Could you imagine trying to support your son through this? And he's a danger to himself and probably others. Maybe it wasn't such a big deal when he was mute, but what about when he started screaming out, convulsing and throwing himself in the fire? Imagine the hopelessness that he must have felt, the desperation. And then to take your son to the disciples, thinking, okay, I'll try again. I'll try again. He's probably been to everybody. I'll try again. This kid that I've been with that I love, that everyone stares at because he does this. All right, I'll take him to the disciples, but then they couldn't help him. Many of us have walked through hard things like this with people that we love. Maybe it's illness, failure, alcoholism, mental health issues, anxiety. We're not strangers to these issues, are we? And we've stood with them and we've prayed and we've believed and we took them to a special meeting and we've got somebody really famous to lay hands on them because we're desperate for breakthrough. We just don't want them to be going through this anymore. We don't want this cycle to just keep going round. It's like, God, you have got to do something. And we get so desperate. And yet, like this dad, after the disciples had prayed for this boy, we've left disappointed. We can all relate to that, can't we? We can relate to that repeated disappointment and that fear to trust again, that fear to hope again, because it hurts. And what about the disciples? It could be about them, because when Jesus came and found them, they were disputing with the religious scribes or the scholars. They'd tried to do this stuff. They'd been sent out. They'd all been sent out, and they'd healed people, and they'd seen deliverance, and all this, and they were all excited about what God had done through them and everything. Well, now, when this boy had been brought, they were left embarrassed, confused. What was going on? And it left them talking doctrine. And I just wonder how many times do we react to God when he doesn't do things the way we think he should do it? Do we settle for just talking about the word? Just talking about how it should be, talking about what faith should look like. We're talking about, what should happen. God should bless me. And we just discuss ideas and we let go of what the reality of relationship with God is. And we give up. We just talk the word, talk talk. We've all been there as well, right? Yeah? And it's just what an interesting mix of people. They're all so broken. We've got the kid on the floor. We've got the desperate dad. We've got all the people watching on to see what's going to happen here. We've got the disciples who can't do the stuff, apparently. We thought we could do the stuff. We stepped out to do the stuff. We can't do the stuff. And, we can relate to all of them. And then Jesus comes in, and he asks, what's going on? And in verse 19, he answered him and said, oh, hang on, did I jump a bit? No, this is it. Oh, faithless generation, or faithless is, in my footnote, it says unbelieving. I think unbelieving is really important. I think a lot of translations use that. Oh, faithless or unbelieving generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I bear with you? Bring him to me. Now, when I read that, I kind of heard, for goodness sake, you guys are driving me nuts. You're not getting it. Like, I think I kind of heard a little bit of fed upness. That's a word. Like, Jesus sort of, oh, come on, guys. What's going on here? How long? For goodness sake. In Luke 9 and 41, it says, faithless and perverse generation, how long will I bear with you? And I think that if I put myself in the disciples' shoes, because I think when I read that verse, I always feel like the disciple. I feel like the one that says, that's hearing, oh, guys, come on, you should be better than this. I just hear that frustration from Jesus. But I looked up this word bear, and it's anakomai, I think. All right, this is what it means. It means endure, uphold, persevere with, tolerate, put up with, stand firm with, not losing courage under pressure. How different is that to bear with, like, is the feeling? This is like nothing like, for goodness sake, guys. This is, how long will I endure with you? How long will I uphold you? How long will I persevere with you? Tolerate what's going on. How long will I put up with it? How long will I stand firm with you? How long will I not give up courage under pressure with you? Isn't that different? Doesn't that feel different? That felt really different to me. And it made me think, because a lot of these words are the same words that are used in 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient and kind, rejoices in the truth, it isn't jealous, doesn't brag or seek its own, it's not arrogant, doesn't provoke, doesn't take joy in evil deeds, but bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things, love never fails. Like, this is the same bit, isn't it? These are all the words that bear with means. So Jesus is saying, how long will I bear with you? How long will I bear with you? He's looking at the Son. He's looking at the Father. He's looking at the disciples. He's looking at the religious scholars and the crowd. And he is seeing every single one right where they are. And he is saying, how long will I bear with you? But we know the answer, don't we? He will always bear with me. You know what? It doesn't matter how much I've failed. It doesn't matter how many times I've been through this cycle or how much I think Jesus should be frustrated with me. He will always bear with me. Isn't that good news? Whether I'm the son stuck in bondage, Jesus will bear with me. If I'm the dad feeling so hopeless, ready to give up, Jesus will bear with me. If I'm like the disciples and my relationship with God has suddenly become reduced to disputes, Jesus will bear with me. He bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Jesus and his love for me will never fail. And I just believe that somebody needs to hear today, they need to hear this, that Jesus is not as frustrated with you as you think. Isn't that good news? Jesus is not as frustrated with you as you think. So many times we think he is, don't we? And we could read that verse how long should I bear with you? Well, think about it. If you've been a parent, how long did you bear with your kids learning to potty train, use the toilet? As long as it takes. As long as it takes. You know, we're not going to give up, are we? We love them. We'll bear with them as long as it takes. To sleep through the night, as long as it takes. To feed yourself, as long as it takes. You know, it's just a different perspective. All right. The other thing that really stood out to me in this passage is I know nothing. All right? The dad told Jesus what he thought the problem was. My son, the demon. My son, the mute spirit. But Jesus doesn't really want to talk about that at all. So often, we come to Jesus with what we think the problem is, and it's like he says, well, yeah, let's talk about something else. And Jesus isn't even mildly interested in talking about this demon at all. He wants to talk about unbelief. He says, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. And I looked up this definition of believe, and I was just like, wow, this is awesome. So believe is pistio. I'm good at this. Which means to trust in, to have faith in, to be fully convinced of, acknowledge, rely on. This bit got me. Rely on. It's more than agreeing with doctrines, because so many times we think we get to faith and by believing, by getting it right in our heads, by understanding it. But it's so much more than that. It is expressed by reliance on and personal trust that produces obedience. Okay, so believing, if you believe, all things are possible to him who believes. This has got nothing to do with all the things I know. This has got nothing to do with everything I can recite, everything I can teach. This has got everything to do with my reliance and total dependence on God. This man, he was being asked, can you surrender everything to me? Can you put all your trust on me? It makes me think of the concept of being poor in spirit. You know, Matthew 5:3, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. You know, if I'm poor in spirit, I recognize that I am spiritually poor. I recognize the state of my spiritual poverty. I've got nothing. I know nothing. I've got nothing, God. I cast myself aside, and my dependence is totally on you, God. And believing is a state of total dependence on God, is a state of realizing our own spiritual poverty, that it's not what we think we know, it's not what we're trying to put in practice. It's just all about who he is and throwing ourselves at his feet and saying, you are everything. I actually know nothing. Let's talk about whatever you want to talk about. I rely on you. And so in this story, we've got a dad who is so aware of his spiritual poverty. I've got nothing. I believe, but help my unbelief. It was a posture of surrender, a posture of throwing himself down at the feet of Jesus and saying, I am relying on you. And that's belief. And then in the passage, we've also got a son who's been seized by a demon, and he's been taken down and thrown down to the ground. Okay, so we've got a son laying on the ground before Jesus, but he's been thrown to the ground. He's been seized, and he's been put down there by the enemy. And then we've got a father, broken, crying, surrendered, relying on Jesus. And he's thrown himself at the feet of Jesus. Can you see the posture? It maybe wasn't the same physically, like maybe the dad wasn't laying on the ground, but the heart posture, do you know from the outside it looks exactly the same? If we were to think of a boy thrown to the ground, laying on the ground because he's been put there by the enemy, but then we were to think of a dad laying himself on the ground, saying, I've got nothing. I'm putting everything down. It's all yours, God. I am totally relying on you. And the question that I believe God's asking is, why are you on the ground? Have you surrendered, or have you been taken down? Because it can look the same. You know, our brokenness, our crying, our complaining, our wailing, you know, it can look the same from the outside. We can be on the ground because we've been taken down. We've taken a severe beating from the devil. Or we can be on the ground because it's like, I've got nothing. I give you everything. I'm totally reliant on you. And so, why are we on the ground? We've all had days when we felt like we've been seized and we've been thrown to the ground. I've had days like that recently. And it's like you just feel like the enemy has come in and everything's coming against you. And all of a sudden, it's like you're on the ground. And it's like, I'm on the ground and I don't know how I got here, but it's hurting. And I need freedom. I need you, God. I need you to get me out. But the thing that I believe that God's really saying is, it's not powerful. There's no power in staying on the ground. But my prayer becomes, God, I'd ask that you would give me the strength so that I can stand up again and I can throw myself on the ground. Because my surrender is so much more powerful than the enemy seizing me and throwing me down. Yeah? The most valuable thing I have is my surrender. If I know my spiritual poverty, I can't do this without you, God. I can choose to believe. I can choose to fully rely on you. Help my unbelief. And the awesome thing is, you know, you can pray that we can pray, God, help my unbelief. Like, we don't even have to get it all together. It's okay that it's there. The best thing we can do is just say, God, help my unbelief. It's okay to pray that. How many times do we pray that, though? I seem to forget that prayer. Like, does everyone else forget that prayer as well? I seem to forget that prayer. It's like, God, need you to move. I need you to do this. And I rely on you, but I forget to pray. God, help my unbelief. The bit that's not falling into line, the bit that's been hurt because of the cycle, the bit that's given up, the bit that doesn't want to hope again. Help my unbelief. And Jesus doesn't say, mm-mm. No, he doesn't turn the dart away at all, does he? And that's where we came back to Lamech's revelation that he shared last year about prayer and fasting. You know, Bill Johnson says that fasting is when we become more hungry for the spiritual than we do for the natural. When we enter into those seasons of prayer and fasting, it's not about our authority, it's about what's in our heart. You know, when we spend time praying and fasting, we spend time before the Lord, He deals with those things in our heart. He deals with the unbelief. He deals with the disappointments. And we find that things change on the inside. And we are better able to deal with whatever comes our way. But Jesus will talk about what he wants to talk about. You know, when this dad came, it wasn't like, okay, let's talk about the demon. It was, let's talk about your heart. Let's talk about what's really going on. Is it unbelief? Is it fear? I mean, we all know we've all got stuff, right? What's going on in your heart? Jesus wants to talk to us about that today. He wants to talk about what's really going on. And it's when we take time to deal with what's really going on in our heart that we see Jesus, that we can see that ourselves walk free of those cycles, that we see the boy be called up by Jesus, that we see the freedom come, that we see the dad set free, that we see the disciples restored hope, that we see so much happen and change. You know, Jesus is going to bear with us forever. If we keep going around this cycle, his position doesn't change. But why would we? Right? Why would we? His love never fails. And it doesn't matter who you are in the passage today. It doesn't matter if you feel like you're the boy, if you feel like you're the dad, if you feel like you're the disciple, if you feel like you're all of them. It doesn't matter who you are in that passage today. Jesus is offering a hope that he will always be there for us, that he wants to bring deliverance, that he wants to bring the answer. And our role in all of this is to realize our spiritual poverty and say, Jesus, I give you everything. I give you my most valuable possession. I give you my surrender. So I just want you to close your eyes for a minute. And I just want you to think about that passage. I don't know if you see yourself in that story at all today. You know, I never thought I could have related to being the boy thrown on the ground. And yet, recently I've just felt so much like that boy. And yet, even though the enemy may come in and he may throw us down, it's not the end of the story. You may feel like that dad that has just been persevering, walking through things with people, and you're starting to feel so discouraged. But Jesus is saying, I'm right here. Don't wrestle with your unbelief. Don't wrestle with your fear. Believe. Throw yourself at my feet. Give me your surrender. Rely fully on me. If you feel like that disciple and you've stepped out to do things for the Lord and just feels like it hasn't happened, Jesus is here. And he's bearing with you. He's not saying for goodness sake. He's saying let's go. He's calling us close, calling us into intimacy, calling us into a place where we're so hungry for him beyond physical food. That we're hungry for his presence, for the reality of his power, that we won't settle for empty words and talk. But I believe the answer to no matter who we are in the story is our surrender. And so just as you're thinking about the things you're facing, it's been such hard years. This whole season, we hear bits of what different ones are facing, and we know what different ones are going through, and our hearts break with you. And Jesus knows. And we can surrender to him. He is worthy of our surrender. And so, Jesus, we just lay our lives at your feet today. God, we just give you the only thing we can. It's the only thing you want. We give you our everything. We give you our surrender. We can't solve things, Lord. Our wisdom doesn't go far enough. God, we don't know what to do. We get stuck in cycles. And yet, God, you will bear with us. Help us to believe. Help our unbelief, God. We give you our everything today, Lord. We give you our surrender, God. We give you our surrender, Lord. Not just when it's easy, God. We give you our surrender when it's hard. And Lord, for those of us who have been thrown to the ground, help us up, Lord, that we may throw ourselves down at your feet again. We don't want to be held down, God. We want to lay down. We give you our surrender, God.